If you think power is about being the most sinister-looking man in a room, then this video you're about to watch will psychologically bully that belief out of you. What you may not know is that, like a board of chess, power in this world has already been divided by forces bigger than us into two categories. There are people who sit in the big chairs moving pieces across the board, overtaking and destroying if needed to win. And then there's you, amongst the people who are moved on the wrong side of the divide, working hard day and night, trying to be nice and respectful and still getting ignored. Still an insignificant figure when you walk into a room. Buckle up, because that is going to change at the end of this video. No one understood power better than Machiavelli. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote his book The Prince about 500 years ago, while working as a secretary to the Second Chancery of the Republic of Florence, just after the Medici were out of power. And if you think about it, who better to tell us the workings of men in power than someone who has been assumed to be a wallflower, listening to their discussions for years? His manual, The Prince, has now become a manual for would-be tyrants to seize power, and he openly advised rulers to engage in evil when political necessity requires it. In the next 10 minutes, we're going to dismantle the lies you've been told about power and networking, and fully explore Machiavelli's 13 ruthless laws of powers. We just ask that you be careful with this knowledge, use it as psychological weapons, and from today, think of yourself and people in places of power as equals. We begin with Law 1, Never Outshine the Master. If you ever find yourself where you have the opportunity to put down a powerful person and take his place, prove yourself or share the clever analysis, an insight that would make you look smarter than him, think twice about it. Remember the first law. This is because, if you listen to your instinct, you may find yourself unconsciously making enemies for the future. You see, against our knowledge, powerful people have fragile egos. That pedestal you see them standing is so delicate that they have to consistently position themselves as the smarties, the most important and most visionary. If you come in strong to take that spotlight from them, you won't look like an asset but a threat that needs to be eliminated. So what you do instead is to adjust. Present your ideas as a question, or frame it in a way that makes it seem like they need to agree with you for it to be their idea. That way, you can safely hand the spotlight back after being in it for a second long enough for them to register you in their minds as an ally. Useful, not dangerous. That's not weakness, that's you slowly taking influence, observing, learning patterns, and securing your position. While doing this, Law 2 says conceal your intentions. We know that being transparent makes you feel honest, but the downside is that it makes you predictable. If they know what you're aiming for, what you want, they can easily offer it to you. And as much as that sounds like a good thing, it just makes you come off as a desperate person. Notice how when people see a rich, powerful man, they suddenly wear their desires on their faces with eyes screaming that they need something, but that just makes them desperate and disposable when they give them their needs. To connect with power, you have to remain a mystery, a puzzle they'll work hard to decipher. Make them wonder about your endgame, and watch them take steps towards you with intrigue. And when you capture their attention, Law 3 says, appeal to self-interest, never to mercy. This is where many people would lose this game plan, but you shouldn't. If you need a favor or an investment, your first step shouldn't be to grovel at their feet, feeling you've suddenly earned their mercy. Do not, I repeat, do not openly talk about your struggles or how much you deserve a chance, because they might listen to your sob story and all they'll do is nod and do nothing. That's because you've just made it into the list of people who just stick around to curry favor. People to be discarded. Instead, find out something they need too. Is there a rival they are against? A project to be completed. Make it more of a transaction, offering alliance for mutual benefit. That way, you are positioning yourself, not as a beggar, but a partner, and trust that door to open quickly. When you've passed that phase and you're able to access powerful men, Law 4 says master the art of strategic absence. Because you want to become like them doesn't mean you should constantly be in their shadow monitoring their pattern. If you become too available to them, you may come off as a leech. Learn to become scarce because rare things have the most value. Pick up calls on the second ring. Turn down some meetings. Be engaged in other worthwhile causes. Have a schedule that doesn't revolve around them. And watch yourself become a person of value to them and one that absence allows them. Start wondering where and what you are up to. Even Machiavelli had said that a prince who is seen too often becomes ordinary. Now, even when you've managed to carve value for yourself, remember Law 5 that talks about the Mirror of Narcissus. This translates to the simple fact that everyone is in love with themselves. Notice how people, mostly powerful people, always want to be understood or validated? So they keep on talking about themselves, their views, achievements, and you don't want to be part of that noise when trying to usurp power from them. You should be like a mirror. Instead of talking about yourself too, reflect and enhance that image back to them. I'm talking about matching their vocabulary, posture, speech speed, non-verbal cues, tone, and even breathing. That way their brain tricks them in what we call a neurological synchronization, to think that you both are alike, and therefore, he can trust you, because you're the best version of themselves staring back at them. And who better to understand them, except you? Now that you have this arsenal at your command, Law 6 says become the gatekeeper of information. In today's world, information is power, but not just common information. Secret information. Current information. Be the person who doesn't spread gossip, but valuable, unfiltered intelligence. And you'd become their go-to confidante. But be careful not to come off as a chatterbox, giving away information including your source. You need to be able to be a good intellectual spy, trading information and maintaining the monopoly of the source so you can remain relevant, because you know secret information. Law 7, the law of the useful enemy, has it that you can now bond with these powerful men, just by knowing who and what they hate. Find out if they have a rival, hatred for the system, a group, or a philosophy, and try to validate their frustration. Articulate that you're on their side of the rivalry, because nothing, not even shared hobbies, bonds people faster than shared enemies. Do not overdo it or come off as purely negative against such a rival or enemy. Polish it such that it seems righteous for the both of you to fight this battle together for the good of all, and in the midst of that mental war, loyalty and a sense of culthood is formed. Law 8 partly relates to Law 5, but this one says to play to their fantasy. In his book, Machiavelli says that people live in their fantasies, of who they should be in the eyes of people, instead of in reality. Your job would be to find out what that fantasy is, and play along. Frame your speeches with them to match that fantasy. If they want to be rebels, be a strong protester. If they want to be teachers, make them mentor you. Ask for advice. The truth is, if you keep up with this game, you find out that apart from their money, you're the one person that supports their delusion, and they'll stick with you. Because if you get out of the picture, their fantasy will crumble. It might sound manipulative and of a truth. It actually is. You have to be a ruthless manipulator to be powerful. If you think yourself unworthy of being manipulative and as such wielding power, then you may not be ready for what Law 9 says. Master emotional alchemy. Trust me, this is not as bad or wicked as it sounds. It's actually simple. It's not a hidden fact that powerful people are constantly under pressure and stress. They carry the weight of people who work for them, and that's a huge storm of anxiety and pressure to continue standing on a fragile pedestal. Most people that come close to such powerful people tend to bring more storms, drama, urgent issues, and problems. You shouldn't add to that. You must be the calm to their storm, the anchor, the one who's the opposite of all what they are going through. Bring them peace, clarity, calmness. Help solve their issues. And watch yourself seductively play your way into their head. That way they'll always want to be around you, because you are now their solace, the place of escape and silence in a world full of noise. Here's another law you might not want to miss. Law 10. Assume formlessness. I believe this is quite self-explanatory. These lists of laws will only serve you well if you can adapt to situations. You might need to be a chameleon for this to work. Sometimes, you've got to be aggressive. Other times, submissive. At some point, a fire. Other times, water. Some days you may need to be a leader, and most often, a follower. Do not get comfortable in one identity. Learn to switch fluidly into what the situation calls for, without giving off the scent of a crafty fox. If you have no form, You are malleable into anything. For Law 11, we have the absolute Machiavellian law. Create a sense of dependency. You cannot be powerful if you're useless or unnecessary. If they can replace you with just another chap down the street, then you're not power material. Find something you can continue to offer them that they necessarily would not be able to do on their own. Something they cannot afford to lose or be the gap between them, and something they want, and make sure not to teach them how to do what you do. That way, you make them rely on you for continued patronage, and make yourself undiscardable. That brings us to Law 12, which says to control the options. If you're going to learn to have powerful people in your hands, you need to learn to curate options and present it to them when needed. Powerful people tend to want to avoid the fatigue that comes with decision-making. That's why they have so many people doing things for them, down to picking their wardrobe. So, if you come by a chance where a decision is to be made, frame the choices so that they only have the options you want them to pick. That way you're also in command of the outcomes. For our last one, Law 13. Machiavelli says to have radical autonomy. To be honest, this law is the most important one. The framework by which other laws should rely on. It simply means that if you want to connect with powerful people, you must not need them. Or at least pretend you don't. Somehow, powerful people can smell parasites, hunger, and need. When you have that sense of radical autonomy, they'll only sense you for who you are. Have your own kingdom where you're still the king and would still do fine without that billionaire across the table. That way, when they notice you have no takeaways and can walk away at any moment, you hold a leverage over them. Now let's pause for a moment and have those laws sink in. You now have a choice. To either stay with the naive people who lose power because they assume fairness, honesty, and good intentions, or grasp reality not because you want to be manipulative, but because you are now aware that power games would be played whether or not you participate, and it's up to you to get a seat at the table. If you've decided, don't just sit there, join us by clicking the like button and subscribing to this channel as we change you, one philosophy at a time. Cheers to our newfound power.